Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan, saya Rizal Octofianto Datau. Saya merupakan dosen sastra di Departemen Bahasa dan Sastra Inggris di Unit Kerja Fakultas Ilmu Budaya Universitas Airlangga, terhitung mulai tanggal 1 Maret 2019. Salah satu mata kuliah yang saya ampu adalah Digital Literature and Culture. Tak hanya mengajar, saya juga menjadi penanggung jawab mata kuliah ini. Digital Literature and Culture merupakan mata kuliah pilihan minat sastra yang ditawarkan untuk para mahasiswa semester gasal pada tahun keempat studi mereka. Mata kuliah ini memiliki bobot 2 SKS. Secara umum, mata kuliah ini berisi pengenalan terhadap bentuk-bentuk karya sastra digital dan produk-produk budaya digital. Artinya, penekanannya pada teks-teks sastra dan budaya yang diciptakan untuk diakses melalui perangkat teknologi digital seperti komputer dan gawai, baik secara daring maupun luring. Capaian pembelajaran mata kuliah ini diantaranya adalah: pertama, setelah menyelesaikan mata kuliah ini, mahasiswa diharapkan memiliki pemahaman yang komprehensif mengenai bagaimana budaya digital memengaruhi dan membentuk karya sastra maupun praktik budaya yang lebih luas. Kedua, mahasiswa akan mampu mengenali beragam genre dan bentuk digital, termasuk sastra elektronik, seni jejaring, dan permainan komputer, serta mengeksplorasi bagaimana platform digital seperti media sosial dan multimedia memengaruhi praktik penceritaan kontemporer. Ketiga, mahasiswa juga akan mengembangkan keterampilan dalam menerapkan kerangka teoritis dan kritis untuk mengkaji sastra elektronik dan bentuk-bentuk budaya digital populer lainnya, sehingga mampu menafsirkan dan terlibat secara kritis dengan lanskap narasi digital yang terus berkembang serta keterkaitannya dengan studi sastra. Unsur-unsur kegiatan mata kuliah ini berupa ceramah, presentasi yang ditindaklanjuti dengan diskusi, dan proyek atau proyek. Persentase terbesar terdapat pada unsur proyek, yakni 70%. Keluaran dari proyek tersebut ialah satu artikel opini tulisan tiap mahasiswa yang diterbitkan di platform media massa digital yang akan disetarakan dengan ujian akhir semester, yang artikel tersebut berisi tentang ulasan mereka terhadap fenomena sastra dan budaya digital yang mereka jumpai. Dengan demikian, penilaian akhir dari mata kuliah ini merupakan gabungan dari aktivitas mahasiswa di tiap pertemuan dan hasil dari proyek yang dimaksudkan. Untuk keperluan sertifikasi dosen, saya mengajukan praktik pengajaran mata kuliah Digital Literature and Culture ini yang diwakilkan dengan praktik pengajaran di pertemuan kedua perkuliahan. Adapun topik yang dibahas dalam kesempatan ini adalah Introduction to Electronic Literature atau pengantar sastra elektronik. Secara garis besar, sub capaian pembelajaran mata kuliah pada pertemuan ini berupa pemahaman dasar tentang apa yang dimaksud dengan electronic literature atau sastra elektronik dan pengenalan bentuk-bentuk karya sastra elektronik. Selama berlangsungnya perkuliahan, kegiatan akan berupa ceramah dan diskusi dengan mahasiswa. Sebagai wujud inovasi pembelajaran, di tengah-tengah sesi, saya secara ringkas akan menampilkan beberapa karya sastra digital dan mendemonstrasikan cara membacanya. Saya kira demikian. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Oke, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is our second meeting because last week we discussed the syllabus, yes? And as I told you earlier last week that we're going to discuss the introduction to electronic literature. Okay, this is not English literature but electronic literature. Okay, quite different. Before going further, I need to know whether you are familiar with the term electronic literature. Have you ever heard digital literature? What do you know about digital literature?
Maybe it's literature that is in phones or like in the internet or something.
On the phone or on the internet? Okay, anyone else?
More modern.
The same.
More modern.
More modern. Oh, okay. In what way?
In the application maybe are about the how you get the like the object probably because but before maybe just from the book but for now it can be applied on many platforms.
Do you consider ebook as a, for example, you are reading a novel but the format of the file is PDF. Do you consider that novel as a digital literature? Yes? Okay, I'm going to tell you now that no, it's not. Why? So that's why we have this meeting, okay? Okay. Introduction to English literature. So this is just introduction. That means pengantar. So I'm going to introduce you to some forms. Before introducing you to the forms, I'm going to introduce you to the definition. There will be several definitions. This is a new thing. This is part of digital humanities. We are humanities students, yes? And the fun fact is, we are now living in the digital humanities 2.0. So what's the 1.0? 1.0 is when the printed version of manuscripts are digitalized. So it becomes a digitized manuscript. That's digital humanities 1.0. Now we are living in digital humanities 2.0. That means not only talking about how formats, printed formats are digitalized, but how we use digital methodology, digital methods. Okay? So you are expected to understand what electronic literature is and how it differs from print literature. If you mention that PDF, for example, what book do you use in linguistics, in literature, in cultural studies, or grammar maybe, or writing, or speaking? What book? Do you have the printed book, the module? Okay, so if you think that book becomes PDF, that book is not digital. In this case, if it's a printed fiction, so it's not a digital literature, it's not digital fiction. Okay? And then identify key forms and genres of e-literature such as hypertext fiction and interactive poetry. We will be talking about what hypertext is, what interactive is, and then recognize major developments and examples in the history of e-lit, just briefly, yeah, because this is introduction, and explore how digital technology influences narrative, authorship, and reader interaction. Why authorship is very important? You know Wattpad, right? Yeah, there's interaction between the readers and the authors. Okay, we'll get back to that later. Okay. Analyze selected e-lit electronic literature works through a critical and theoretical lens. Okay, I think we're not going to talk further about this, since again this is just introductory class. So at least you get the insight. Okay. To begin with, these are the popular sources when we are talking about electronic literature. First is a book by Catherine Hales, published in, if I'm not mistaken, the early 2000s. Okay, and the fun fact is there's organization. This organization was established, founded in 1999. So it's before 2000. Okay, we're going to visit the website. So I'm going to show you the examples, the forms of electronic literature. Okay. And the current one, the recent one, is by Scott Redberg. It's published in 2019. So let's talk a bit about each of them. So this is the homepage of electronic literature organization.org, ELO. Okay, an international organization. So this is a non-profit organization dedicated to the investigation of literature produced for the digital medium. This is the keyword, medium, digital medium. Again, PDF is not born digital. It's born printed, while electronic literature is born digital. And this is debatable. Why? Could you please tell me which novel, which short story nowadays which were not typed by Microsoft Word or WPS, for example? So basically, things written now is digital, right? Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is kind of debatable, but luckily, digital humanities is developing. So there's no fixed definition. It keeps developing because this is new thing. Okay. So again, for the digital medium. Now Hales, 2008. This is the definition made by Hales, and take a look at what is underlined here. Exclude print literature. Exclude print literature. So if it's a PDF, it's actually printed. But if it's, for example, Wattpad, it's born digital and then it's printed. You see the difference? Yeah. Okay. Is by contrast digital porn, as I told you earlier, a first generation digital object created on a computer. Again, the debatable thing, Microsoft Word. When's the first time you used Microsoft Word? Yeah. No. The first time. When you were in elementary school, maybe, yeah. Yeah. So that's why your generation, Gen Z, is called digital native. Yeah, you're the native of digitalization, digitality. Created on a computer and usually, can I move this? Oh yeah, it's movable. Created on a computer and usually meant to be read on a computer. Again, there's this so-called medium. Gadget, gawai, device. Okay, there's this certain device, it's called Kindle. Are you familiar with Kindle?
Yes.
And its competitors like Kobo. What else? Are you familiar with e-book readers? No? You can also read from your tab, Samsung tab or Apple iPad. That's what Hales told us. So there are 2 points. First, exclude print literature. Okay? So if you read Shakespeare and then you read the PDF version, that doesn't automatically become digital literature or digital poetry. Okay? Because it's not born digital. Created on a computer and usually meant to be read on a computer or device. Now the last person, Scott Redberg. ELIT is most simply described as new forms and genres of writing that explore the specific capabilities of the computer and network literature. See, network literature. That means it can be connected to the internet or not. Why? Because in the past, when there's only computer and internet was not that famous, only certain people use internet, the form of the electronic literature was in the form of a disc. In Indonesia, we call it diskette. Yeah. So if you want to read the English literature, you just insert the disc. So it didn't have any internet connection, and then you just read the work, the literary work. Okay. That would not be possible without the contemporary digital context. And then a key advantage of the term electronic literature. So Scott prefers using the word electronic instead of digital. Why? This is the reason why. Is its generality. So it covers almost everything whose medium is device, whose medium is digital. And thus its ability to include those emerging genres. That means again, it keeps developing, yeah, that did not exist in the 1990s when the term was first widely circulated. Another fun fact, actually, electronic literature, there was a debate about what's the correct name of this kind of literature. It's digital, but what's the correct name, the right name? So some people said digital, some people said electronic, and many more, internet maybe, and so on. Okay, and Scott Reitberg in 2019, he defined explicitly it should be electronic literature. Okay, do we have to believe him? No, you don't have to. You can use the term digital literature as well. That's my opinion. Okay. Okay. So in a nutshell, the corpus of e-literature or electronic literature, do you know what corpus is? If you're from linguistics, you know what corpus is. So it's a set of data. For example, if you have a PDF and then you upload your PDF onto some kind of a software to understand why this PDF has certain issues, that means you need to understand the PDF as a corpus. Corpus is the main source, the data, something like that. Okay, I can give you an example. My lit lecturer gave me an example like this. We used to have this grammar book. It's called Fundamental English Grammar, if I'm not mistaken. So the author was Betty Scramfer-Azar. What he showed us, students, so he uploaded the PDF of that book to machine, a software, and he wanted to show us whether this book has a gender bias content. How do you do that? This is a grammar book, just an ordinary grammar book. And then what you need to do is just, so this is what we call corpus, so many pages. So what he did was, let's type a simple word. It's bicycle. And then he showed us bicycle is usually connected to the word he, him, John, James, yeah, male, what else? Everything which is related to male, to boys, to men. Even though the author unconsciously, yeah, realized that this book contains something which is bias, gender bias. So we can start research, for example, in linguistics, using this kind of way. Okay? So that's what we call corpus. So the corpus of English literature is a literature of a new literary forms, genres that have varying degrees of correspondence with those from previous traditions and contexts. Do you know a work of literature called Pride and Prejudice? Yes. Have you ever heard Pride and Prejudice and Vampire? And Zombie? And Zombies? Yes. But that's not an English literature. Sorry, electronic literature. Yeah, it's also print literature. My point is, when we're talking about correspondence with those from previous tradition and context, we can actually modify classic literature, yeah, as a digital literature. You can mess up a magnum opus, a masterpiece, Shakespeare masterpiece, because of your knowledge of digitality, okay, and it becomes a new thing. For example, this is quite digital. It's called fan fiction. Yeah, fan fiction is quite digital. You can allude. Do you still remember what allude is in English poetry? You have taken English poetry, right? Allusion. When something is relevant to another thing, art is relevant to another art. Usually in the class I give example like Dewa 19 song. Cukup Siti Nurbaya, the song itself is a work of art. Yes? But Siti Nurbaya is also a work of art of language, sastra. Right? But this song alludes to another art. That's what we call allusion. Okay? Another example at the time I usually give, like, you are my kryptonite. Suppose you are reading a novel. The novel itself is a work of art of language, which is sastra. And then the author, in one of the lines, he wrote, she is my kryptonite. Kryptonite refers to something else, which is work of art, film, right? Superman. When art is alluding to another art. Okay, so correspondence with those from previous traditions and context. Another thing that we can draw from English literature is native to the digital environment. So that's why it's called born digital. For the most part, they could not easily be produced, cannot easily be produced in the printed one. Yeah? Consumed in print literary context. You need a device to read the work of literature. Okay? Can you print it? Maybe. So I ask some students, sometimes, which one do you prefer? Reading from the screen or reading from the paper? What about you? Can you please raise your hand if you feel it's enjoyable to read from paper? Reading from paper. Oh. From screen? Nobody. Oh, okay. I thought you feel okay with, not okay. You prefer reading from screen, no? Because usually in the classroom you take pictures, right? From your lecturer slides. Okay then. Next thing, fundamentally experimental literature. As I told you, it keeps developing, it keeps growing. So that's why we can call it as experimental. Okay? The writers and artists producing these works are centrally concerned with new narrative forms, new forms, and poetic approaches that could not exist in the absence of this computational context. In the absence of the computational context. That's very important. Okay, computational doesn't have to be connected to internet. Okay, as long as it has a device which is electronic, it can be called as a work of digital literature. Okay, so it doesn't need a internet connection, not always. Novelty is undoubtedly central. I will show you the examples of electronic literature taken from the website. There are so many examples. You can even take one. Just now, I think after Duhur, 12:30. So I she's my student advisee. So I was her thesis advisor. Her material object was an electronic literature. Okay. Taken from one of the works in the website. So I'm going to show you. There are so many forms. Novelty. Why it's called novelty? You know what novelty is? It's not about novel, okay? It's newness. Okay, it's newness. Its authors are trying out new tools and approaches. So sometimes, if you have an idea to make a digital literary work, you need someone else who are expert in coding. But if you're interested in coding, that's good. You don't need someone else. Okay? Conducting experiments in the same way as scientists do in a lab, testing how materials work together, what sorts of reactions occur. Now, what sorts of reactions? When you're trying to use a work of digital literature as the object of your research, you can actually ask someone else to read it, and then you can analyze the response. So we're talking about the reaction. How do you feel reading this kind of work of literature? This is unconventional. This is digital. You have to click, you have to tap. Okay, you can also analyze that kind of thing. When new mixes of computational method and literary practice and cast into the same cauldron. Do you know what cauldron is? Cauldron is like bejana. Melting pot. You can put everything there. Again, because this is still developing. So some of the examples are hypertext fiction. So we'll get back to that. Interactive fiction, kinetic poetry, network writing based on the collective experience of the internet, and so on. So I will show you the examples. This is the newest. Okay, I think you are familiar with Insta poem or Insta poetry. Are you familiar with the Nemrupi Kaur? Yes, of course. And this one, what do you call this? Alternate universe. Yeah. This is quite popular among you. Okay, and this one, this is also one of the thesis object, also from my thesis at FIC. Okay, Charlie in Underworld. So this is app, and this one is of course Wattpad. Thank you, Gafira. Okay, this is the new ones. So unlike the earlier ones, hypertext fiction and poetry. So I'm going to show you. I hope we can go online. But before doing so, let's sum up. So English literature is an umbrella term. Again, you can even use digital literature instead of electronic literature. Why it's called electronic? Because you need the device which is electronic. Okay, remember electronic, not electric. Yeah, electric. No, unify some specific new literary terms like hypertext, cybertext, and so on. And this one, the abilities and context offered by the stand-alone, without internet or network computer. What happened? Sensitive. Yeah? Okay. And English literature must be born digital. It cannot easily be produced or consumed in a print literary context. Okay? So if you see Wattpad on a bookstore, Wattpad novel, sudah dibaca 1 juta kali, 14 juta kali, and so on. Okay, they're actually born digital and then adapted to print version. Okay?